Previously on our story, Neka gave Chisera a full basket of palm kernels to go into the forest to crack them, and Chisera was devastated and didn't know what to do. So we left her in the forest, crying and confused. We are going to dive into our story. As Chisera sat in despair, a soft rustling sound caught her attention. She looked up to see the young mermaid she had once saved, her tail glittering into the moon. "You called for help," the mermaid said, smiling gently. Chisera nodded. "I can't do this alone. Neka will punish me if I don't finish this." The mermaid waved her hand over the basket. In an instant, the palm kernels cracked open, their shell neatly peeled into one side. Chisera's eyes widened in amazement. "Thank you," she whispered. The mermaid touched Chisera's hand. "Be strong, little one. Your kindness will be rewarded." With that, the mermaid disappeared into the shadows, leaving Chisera alone with the cracked kernels. She carried the basket back to the house, her heart filled with a strange mix of hope and fear. When Neka saw the completed task, her face twisted in disbelief. "How did you finish so quickly?" she demanded. Chisera said nothing, but the flicker of defiance in her eyes was enough to unsettle Neka. Neka couldn't shake the unease that crept into her heart. Chisera's sudden ability to complete impossible tasks unsettled her. How could a girl have cracked all those palm kernels so quickly? She must be up to something, Neka muttered to herself, pacing the kitchen. Or maybe the elder was right. Maybe there is a spirit protecting her. But instead of softening her treatment of Chisera, Neka grew harsher. She thought that if she could break the girl's spirit, whatever force was protecting her would abandon her. The next day, Neka handed Chisera a bundle of firewood. "Take this to the farthest part of the forest," she ordered, "and don't come back until you gather twice as much wood as you carried in." Chisera nodded, though her legs already inched from the endless chores. She picked up the bundle and started walking towards the forest. Toby, her royal friend, followed her close behind, his tail wagging as if to encourage her. Deep in the forest, Chisera set the bundle of firewood down and sighed. The sun was high, and her stomach growled from hunger. She glanced at Toby, who barked softly as if sensing her despair. "Queen of the river," Chisera whispered, looking towards the stream that ran through the forest. "I need your help again." This time, the water shimmered quickly, and the queen of the river appeared, her golden tail glittering into the sunlight. "You are strong, Chisera," the queen said, her voice calm. "But even the strongest need help sometimes." Chisera lowered her head. "I don't know how much I can take. Neka keeps making my life harder." The queen nodded thoughtfully. Her cruelty will not go unanswered. "For now, take this." She handed Chisera a small shell, its surface glowing faintly. "When you are in danger or in need, hold this shell and call for me. I'll come." Chisera took the shell, her fingers trembling. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. With the wave of her hand, the queen summoned a gentle breeze that gathered pails of firewood and placed them neatly beside Chisera. "Your task is complete," the queen said. "Go home, child, and remember, kindness always finds its reward." When Chisera returned home with a trace amount of firewood Neka had asked for, Neka's face darkened with suspicion. "How is this possible?" she demanded. "You don't even take half of the time I expected." Chisera simply lowered her head, refusing to meet Neka's gaze. "You're hiding something," Neka hissed, her eyes narrowing. "I'll find out what it is, and when I do, you'll regret overcrossing me." From that day on, Neka began watching Chisera more closely. She followed her to the river, spied on her while walking, even rummaged through her small belongings. But no matter how hard she tried, she didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Neka's frustration grew, and with it, her hunger began plotting ways to uncover Chisera's secret and ways to make her pay. Neka's obsession with uncovering Chisera's secret consumed her. She spent her days thinking of ways to trap the girl and force her to confess. One evening, Neka called Obinna into her room. "I need to watch Chisera closely," she said, her voice low and sharp. "Follow her wherever she goes. If she does anything strange, tell me immediately." Obinna grinned. He enjoyed tormenting Chisera and was eager to help his mother. "I'll catch her, Mama," he promised. The next morning, Obinna followed Chisera as she carried her clay pot to the river. He stayed hidden behind trees, carefully not to let her see him. When Chisera knelt by the water, Obinna crept closer, holding his breath. "Queen of the river," Chisera whispered, holding a glowing shell the mermaid had given her. "Please, help me. I don't know how much longer I can stay here." Obinna's eyes widened. He had never seen anything like that. The water shimmered, and the queen of the river appeared, her golden tail glittering into the sunlight. "Patience, my child," the queen said. "The time of your freedom is near, but be careful. Danger is closer than you think." Obinna gasped, and the queen's sharp eyes turned towards the bush where he was hiding. With a wave of her hand, the bush rustled violently, scaring Obinna away. Obinna ran as fast as his legs could carry him. When he reached the compound, he busted into Neka's room, panting and wide-eyed. "Mama, I saw her," he exclaimed. Chisera was talking to someone in the river, a spirit. Neka's eyes widened. "I knew it," she hissed. "That little witch is bringing bad luck to this house. We need to get rid of her." "But how, Mama?" Obinna asked, his voice trembling. Neka's face twisted into a cruel smile. "Leave that to me. If she's working with the spirit, then we'll deal with her in the forest, where no one can hear her cry for help." That evening, Neka called Chisera into the kitchen. "Tomorrow, you'll go to the farthest part of the forest and fetch wild fruits," she said. "Take this basket and don't return until it's full." Chisera nodded, her heart sinking. She knew the forest was dangerous, especially the deeper parts, but she also knew she had no choice. The next morning, Chisera set out with Toby by her side. As she walked, she noticed the forest seemed quieter than usual. Even the birds were silent. Neka and Obinna followed her from the distance, staying hidden among the trees. Neka carried a long rope, her eyes gleaming with malice. When Chisera reached a clearing, she set down her basket and began picking fruits. Suddenly, Toby barked furiously, his tail stiff. Chisera turned to see Neka and Obinna emerging from the shadows. "What are you doing here, Mama?" Chisera asked, fear creeping into her voice. Neka's smile was cold. "I came to deal with you once and for all." Before Chisera could run, Obinna grabbed her arms, and Neka tied the ropes around her waist. "You've brought bad luck to this family," Neka spat. "Now you pay for the price." Chisera struggled against the rope, but Neka and Obinna were too strong. Fear rushed through her as she realized they intended to leave her in the forest, alone and helpless. She tried to call for help, but her voice trembled with a weight of her fear. "Please, Mama, please don't leave me here," Chisera begged. But Neka just sneered. "You should have known this would happen. No one can save you now." As Neka and Obina turned to leave, Chisera felt a sudden rush of cold air. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was it. She had nowhere to run and no one to turn to. But just then, as Neka and Obina were about to disappear into the trees, the water in the nearby stream began to glow. Shimmering in the moonlight, a soft magical sound echoed through the forest, and the ground beneath them seemed to tremble. Neka and Obina froze, their eyes widened with a shock. The water in the stream rose, and out of the depth emerged the queen of the river, her golden tail shining like the sun. "You've gone too far, Neka," the queen said, her voice like a song carried by the wind. "You've tried to harm one who has done nothing wrong. For this, there will be consequences." Neka stepped back, fear creeping in her heart. "Please, Queen of the River, forgive me. I didn't mean to." "You meant to harm a child who had nothing but kindness in her heart," the queen interrupted, her eyes glowing with hunger. "And now you will learn that the spirits do not forgive such cruelty." Before Neka could say another word, the queen raised her hand and the ground beneath her feet began to crack. Roots and veins surged from the earth, wrapped around Neka's legs and arms, holding her in one place. "Please, Queen, I beg you," Neka cried, struggling against the vines. I didn't know she was special. Please let me go." But the queen's gaze remained unyielding. "You have been given a chance to change, but you choose cruelty instead. Now you face the consequences of your actions." The vines tightened and Neka gasped in pain. She fell to her knees, her voice choking on the words she tried to say. The queen's magic was powerful and there was no escape. "You stay here," the queen said coldly, "until you learn the value of kindness." As Neka struggled to break free, the queen turned to Chisera, who had been watching in awe. "Chisera," the queen said softly, "you've shown compassion when others showed only cruelty. Your kindness will be your strength." With a wave of her hand, the queen released Chisera from the ropes. "Go home, little one, you are free." Chisera slowly stood up, her hands still trembling from the ordeal. She glanced at Neka, who was still trapped by the veins, and then back to the queen. "Thank you," Chisera whispered. "I don't know what I could have done without you." The queen smiled warmly. "You have done more than you've realized. You've shown strength, and that is what will guide you in the days ahead." With that, the queen of the river vanished into the mist, leaving Chisera standing alone in the quiet forest. Chisera turned and walked back to the village, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and relief. She was finally free, but she knew her journey was far from over. Neka's punishment was just a beginning. She was just beginning of what needed to be done to bring peace to her life. When Chisera returned home, she found the house empty. Neka and Obina were nowhere to be seen. For a moment, she thought perhaps they had gone to the market, but the eerie silence of the house told her something had changed. Then she heard footsteps outside the door. It was her father, Chijoke. His face was pale and his eyes were filled with concern. "Chisera," he said softly, "where is your mother?" Chisera hesitated, but then she remembered the queen's words. She's not coming back," Chisera said quietly. "She has been punished for her cruelty." Chijoke's face turned pale. "Punishment? What do you mean?" Chisera took a deep breath. "The queen of the river took her. She tried to harm me, but I was protected by the spirit. Now she's learning the consequences of her action." Chijoke stood in silence for a moment, as if processing the words. Then he sighed and looked at his daughter. "I have failed you, Chisera. I should have protected you from the very beginning." Chisera shook her head. "No, father. You have done nothing to apologize for. I'm strong now, and with the Queen's help, I'll make sure that no one can harm me again." Chisera stood in front of her father, feeling the weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. The terror of the past, few years ago, and the cruelty of Neka and Obinna, and the fear of being abandoned had all led to this moment. Chijioke looked at her with a sadness in his eyes. "I have not been the father you needed, Chisera," he said, his voice filled with great regret. "But I'll try to make things right. I'll protect you from now on." Chisera smiled softly, reaching out to hold his hand. "You don't have to apologize anymore, father. I've learned to be strong on my own, but I need you. We both do." The two of them sat in silence for a while, the weight of everything they had been through settling between them. Then Chisera spoke again. "I've learned a lot of these things these past days, father. The spirits are real and they protect those who are kind." Chijioke nodded. "I believe you. I believe that something had changed in this house. Perhaps it's time for all of us to change." The next morning, Chisera woke up early, feeling a sense of determination. She knew that Neka's punishment was only part of what needed to happen for the true peace to come to this family. The hunger and the hatred that had fostered in their home needed to be healed. Chisera went to the river where she had first met the queen of the river. The water was calm, reflecting the blue sky above. As she knelt by the edge, she whispered a prayer of gratitude to the queen's help and asked for her guidance. To her surprise, the queen appeared again, her golden tail shimmering beneath the water's surface. "You've done well, Chisera," the queen said, her voice soft like the wind. "You have faced your fears and shown kindness, even in the face of cruelty. But there is something you need to work on." "What must I do?" Chisera asked, her heart pounding. The queen's eyes softened. "You must heal your father's heart. He has been lost for so long, consumed by guilt and shame. Only through forgiveness he will find peace." Chisera nodded. "I'll help him. I won't let him be lost anymore." The queen smiled. "You are strong, Chisera. You bring light to the darkness that surrounds you." When Chisera returned home, she found her father sitting by the fire, deep in thought. He looked up as she entered, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "Chisera," he said softly, "I've been thinking a lot. I've been so lost in my own regrets that I didn't see how much you've grown. I didn't see the strength inside of you." Chisera walked over and sat beside him, taking his hand. "Father, it's not too late. We can heal together. I know it's hard, but we can forgive each other and start over." Chijioke looked at her, tears welling in his eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I've failed you and your mother. I've failed everyone." Chisera shook her head. "No, father. We all make mistakes, but what matters is what we do next. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to try." Chijioke looked at his daughter, and for the first time in a long while, he saw hope in his eyes. "I'll try, Chisera. I'll try for you. I'll try for us." Over the next few months, things slowly began to change. Chisera and her father worked together to rebuild their home, not just physically, but emotionally as well. They spent time talking, laughing, and healing the wounds that had been caused by years of hunger and regret. Neka and Obinna, though still bound by the queen's magic, were forced to confront their own actions and the harm they had caused. Neka, now a shadow of a cruel woman she had been, began to realize the truth of Chisera's words. Kindness was the only way forward. Chisera's bond with the queen of the river grew stronger. The queen would visit her often, offering advice and guidance. The spirits of the river watched over Chisera and her family, ensuring they were never again touched by darkness. As time passed, Chisera became a symbol of strength and resilience in the village. Her story was shared with others, and people came to see the girl with the wisdom and strength at her age. She had learned that even in the face of cruelty, there was always a way to find peace. So Chisera's life began as anew. The pain of the past faded in the distance, replaced by the love and the light she had brought into the family's heart. Together, they were stronger than ever before, ready to face whatever challenge they face in the future.